Oh.
Hi, everyone. I am Melissa Dorn, and I am here to introduce you to a project called 30 Days of Drawing. And it's a challenge that I know you're up to. Let me tell you just a little bit about myself first. And I do want to thank you if you were here right at 10 o'clock for your patience as we got up and going here. Um, so I am a Milwaukee-based artist. My studio is here in Walker's Point, just down the street actually from the Arts at Large Community Center at Far West. And I do painting, drawing, sculpture, installation, pretty much everything. And for the past, like 5 years, I have been obsessed with industrial mop heads. All the work that I have been doing has been based on the industrial mop head, which you will see shortly as we dive into doing our first drawing. But before we get that far, I do want to share with you some work of other artists that I find inspiring that I think you will also um, enjoy as you start to think about drawing and how you can actively draw for 30 days straight. All right. So I am going to switch cameras here for a moment and show you a few things. Here we go. So I am going to kick us off with Giorgiochi. And I have been fascinated with Georgia's work, I don't know, for a really long time. I mean, since I was probably 8, 9, since I first saw it. And as many of you might know, she lived in Sun Prairie for a little while. And she may be best known for her paintings of flowers. And what I did was I found a few drawings of flowers that she did. And you can see here that they are rather abstract. She's gotten up really close, right? So there are different ways that we can look at the objects that we draw. And I want to share another one with you. So when I look at these two different drawings, actually, let me pull that back over. Let's look at them together. I see some similar things. So it's possible that these two drawings are of the same flower. I don't know for sure, but when I look at some of the lines that she's making, it almost feels like she's taken this flower here and abstracted it more. So really just looking at the lines and the flow of the lines. And here we get some really nice thick lines that we'll want to think about when we get into drawing. Well, I've got two other artists to show you. Zaha Hadid, an architect. And what I thought would be interesting for you to look at here, she really approached architecture in a way that was quite different than what other architects were doing at the time that she was working, in that she approached it through painting and drawing. And her lines here are really thin. It's almost like she worked with a pen of some sort, maybe a thin line marker. And I get really the sense of some sort of landscape here. She was really well known for her curved lines, which are quite different when we kind of think about traditional buildings and all the hard edges and corners that we see. And then here is another one, and this is, I bet you can already imagine, more of like an aerial view, looking down, something that we maybe would see from a plane. So other ways of thinking about drawing where we can get in and do some nice deep blacks, and then some thinner lines, some grays. So keep all of these in mind as you do your 30 days. And then I wanted to show you Betty Saar. And she is best known for her assemblages, which are three-dimensional collages. So if you think about, like, if you've cut up magazines and put them together to create, on paper to create a work of art, she does it with actual objects. And I found two drawings that were in a small sketchbook that she had. And on this one, we see small clocks. And she's got 8 clocks here. Actually, maybe 9. And she's thinking about 8 decades. And this is a drawing for an installation or an assemblage that she would do. And I have one more here. These kind of very sketchy lines, thin lines here. And another one, again, a drawing for a work that's going to be three-dimensional, of a bed. And here she's integrated a little bit of color, which is something that you could think about when you get maybe towards the end of your 30 days. But don't jump into color right away. Let's work with black and white for a little bit. All right. And then I wanted to show you one image of a stack of drawings that I did, all based off of industrial mop heads. And I did, in this particular series, I did over 100 drawings. You're not seeing them all here. There's a little pile right there of drawings. So I did it for a little over 3 months and tried to do it once every day. Now that didn't always happen, but my idea was that every day when I would come into the studio, the first thing I would do is do a drawing on 5 by 5 inch pieces of paper. So it was quite a challenge and fun as well. So know that at the end of your 30 days, you can certainly continue. You could maybe set up a new challenge for yourself. One of the very first things you do as you think about your 30 days is you are going to want to pick an object. And as I mentioned, I am obsessed with industrial mop heads, and I was very serious about it. So here I brought along a mop head. Let's see here, that I'm going to use to draw. So you can think about, what object are you intrigued by? You don't have to be obsessed by it. What object might allow you the opportunity to kind of move it about, change it up a little bit? So one thing I was thinking about is scarves would be pretty amazing to use. You could, if you have a plant like a fern, so many different lines you can make thinking about plants or growing objects. You can also think about shoes, right? Something that we use every day. Shoestrings, if they have them, would be pretty fantastic to continue to draw. You could draw a pair of shoes. You could keep it simple and use one shoe. You can also think about, let me see, what else might be something really easy for you to look at. Maybe it's a stack of books if you happen to have it nearby. Probably best that you're able to kind of keep it out as a reminder to do your 30 days of drawing. So I'm going to push this off a little bit to the side here. We're going to see a little bit of it in the corner. And I'm going to talk about the supplies that you have. If you happen to pick up your supplies at the Arts at Large Community Center, you have a sketchbook here. Let me flip it over so you can see. Sketchbook with lots of pages, so plenty of pages for your 30 days of art. You have a lumber crayon, which will give us some nice thick lines. You have Conte Crayon, which is what I used for the over 100 drawings that I did that you just saw. You have a charcoal pencil. You also got a regular pencil. So for today, I'm not going to think too much about this regular pencil. You are all probably super familiar with a regular pencil and can kind of play with that on your own. And the very first thing I do whenever I'm working with things that are new to me is I practice. I don't necessarily want to jump right into a drawing where I might have expectations of what that drawing looks like. So I am going to play around, and I really encourage you to do this. Play around with these 3 different tools that we have for drawing. So I have my sketchbook open to a spread here, and I'm just going to start to create some lines and think about what I just saw. You know, George O'Keeffe had some really nice thick lines, and I'm looking at this line and thinking, that's kind of a nice gray that can fill in shapes, right? And then I can, you know, do some on a diagonal. I can figure out how much pressure I need to make a dark line, what the best tool is to make a dark line. I'll put that off to the side. I've got some lines there. And I'm going to look at my Conte Crayon, which I've used quite a bit, and I think you'll enjoy. You're not going to want to put too much pressure on this. You can put some, but you don't want to break it. Although if you break it, you can use the bits to draw with. So that is a nice thing. All parts of this Conte Crayon will work as a drawing tool. So here I'm getting some really nice thick, or not thick, thin, dark lines, and they're even darker than my lumber crayon. If I want to try for thick lines, I can put it like straight down on the paper where the square meets the paper, and I get a variety of lines here. And on one part of the line, what you'll notice is it's a little darker than the other part. Again, this could be really good for filling in areas. The other thing you can do is just put it on its side, drag it down the paper, and you get this nice wash, kind of gray. It's got some texture to it. It's picking up the texture of the paper. So that's a couple different ways that you can use the Conte Crayon. You can also, we've got our charcoal pencil here, and some of you may have had the opportunity to use these in the past. A nice dark line. I would say this is probably the most similar to a regular pencil. Think about the different kinds of lines you can make. You know, here I've done some wiggly lines. We can do dashed lines, right? And we can do these with all 3 mediums. We can think about dots. This is pretty light. You may not be able to see it, but I can do dots by just simply putting my charcoal pencil down, but I can also do little circles, right? So that can add some variety to my drawings. Now I could sit here and make dots all day. I'll make one more and then I'll stop. So I hope you've been working along and investigating, exploring these three tools that we have here to use. And really, you can do 30 days of drawing with anything. So any type of writing utensil, it could be a pen even. Pen, regular pencil, charcoal stick. You could even do it with marker, right? So these are all ways that if you didn't pick up the supplies, look around the house, find your object, right? Your object that you're going to draw, and what tools are you going to use? And of course, you'll need some paper. And you can always use regular old like copy paper if you have like a stack of 500. That would be an intense challenge. Let's see if we could use the whole stack of 500. That may be my next challenge. Very often what I'll do at the beginning of the year in January is set up a 30-day challenge with another artist friend of mine. And what's nice about doing it with somebody else is you kind of keep each other motivated, to keep each other going. What we do is we text whenever we finish our drawing for the day. And it's just fun to see what somebody else is interested and what they're doing. So let's dive into drawing our object. Hopefully you have one nearby, and this could really be a test, right? Just to get your feet wet and think about what you may decide is that you picked the wrong object and you can just pick a new one. But I would highly suggest using the same object for your entire 30 days, okay? It just, you don't have to make a decision then, right, about the object. You just think about the drawing. And when you're doing something once a day for 30 days, you do want to not have it take like 2 hours, okay? So what I tried to do when I was doing that 100 drawings was to have it take about 15 minutes. So I would have all my supplies in one place. I would have my mop ready to go. And, you know, I mentioned that what I like about the mop is I can move it about. And I would just come in, sit down, and start drawing. And now I'm very familiar with my mop. The first thing I suggest when you're thinking about your object is that you spend some time really looking at it. You don't need any tools in your hands. You can just simply spend some time looking at your object. I would suggest about 5 minutes. Now, I won't spend 5 minutes looking at my object right now. But one of the things I start to do, and a good thing for you to do, is to see if you can come up with like 5 words about your object. And maybe those 5 words will inform what you do in your drawings. Maybe they won't, but what it gets you to do is to really focus on your object. And probably, I mean, for me at least, the best way to do this is if it's kind of a quiet space and I simply stare at my object. So I would stare at my mop for at least 5 minutes, and I would start to think about words like curly, wavy, soft, because my mop is cotton. I can tell that it's soft. Frayed, some edges are frayed on the end. So if you were doing shoes and maybe shoestrings, there, you know, is the end frayed? Are the shoes tied all the way up, partially up? What else does your object look like? So for me, the mop reminds me of hair, because my mom used to call me a mop head when I was growing up. And it was pretty much anytime she wanted me to get a haircut, which was kind of a lot. And so I relate the mop to hair. What does your object look like something else? Can you see a face in it? If we think about clouds, which probably are not a good thing to pick for this because we don't always know if we'll have clouds. But if we think about that, we often see things in clouds, and we can see things in other things like mops. So think about and investigate with your eyes the object that you are going to draw. And all of this really prepares you for not only your first drawing, but also the many days of drawing and keeping you excited about drawing, right? So I decided to do 30 days of drawing for the very first time a couple years ago. So not that long ago, really. And the reason I decided to do it was because I wanted to come into my studio and start to work right away, not get distracted by other things, and to kind of calm my mind. So that was the reason I started. You might start because you want to work on your drawing skills. You want to get really good at drawing and working with marks and creating line. So we're all going to have slightly different reasons for doing this, and kind of keep that in mind as you move through your 30 days. I don't know if I want to say what's the goal, but just keep in mind what you really are interested in getting out of the 30 days. So let's start drawing. What we're going to do, and what I always suggest, and at least for the first drawing, is see how much of the page you can take up. And I'm going to start drawing my mop. One of the other things I really like about the mop is that I can look at it and I can go, okay, this line here, this thread or this piece of my mop, I find really interesting. So I'm going to use charcoal pencil. You can decide which tool you want to use. I'm going to start with that piece, and I'm going to draw that piece pretty much exactly or close to the way I see it, the way it is in real life. Okay. And I'm going to come around here and do this whole piece. Now I might do a couple other pieces of the mop exactly as I see them. And I'm thinking about using my entire page here. I really like it when I can overlap. So depending on what your object is, again, there might be some really nice opportunity to overlap, which means to have these two touch, these two strands of mop. And already I'm creating some pretty interesting lines, or maybe even like you can think about them as intersections. Let me point out here. Look what's going on right here. That I could like crop away the rest of the drawing, and we've got a really interesting little piece happening here. And sometimes what I'll do, like I'm going to keep going on this drawing and I'm going to fill my page, but I'm going to remember that. I'm going to think about that, because one of my drawings, you know, maybe tomorrow, maybe 5 days from now, I'm going to go, oh yeah, that was really interesting. I want to make that bigger. I want to get in closer to that. So you can definitely use your drawings as inspiration for future drawings. So again, I'm thinking about overlapping, and that this particular thread piece of mop is going to go all the way off the page and behind the other pieces. Now I'm kind of already at making up where my mop is going, but I'm using my mop, my real life mop, the one right here. It's informing me. Okay, so it's I'm looking at the way certain parts of it are kind of curling back on itself and thinking about how I might use that in my drawing. And I can keep going on this. Again, I'm going to kind of pull a piece out here and do it as almost exactly like I see it. And really, you want to think about the drawing itself. So my goal usually is not to draw something super realistically. I want to give room for my imagination. I want to leave room for the tools that I'm using and how they're interacting. So I'm going to think about what best will work with my charcoal pencil, which is the tool I'm using right now. And you can think about, for these drawings, using one tool for an entire drawing, or you can mix it up, and we'll see what happens if I come in with my Conte. Now these lines look similar, but the Conte is just a little bit darker and a little bit thicker. So it's going to add emphasis. It's going to stand out anytime I use it. It's going to stand out a little bit from that charcoal pencil line. So I'm going to come down here and do something. I've got a lot of really pretty wavy. You know what? We're just going to go right over the top here. Kind of wavy mop strands here. And depending on the day, so maybe, you know, one day I have 10 to 15 minutes to work on a drawing. I might at a certain point stop, like if I were to stop right here, I might think about, are there any other little details I want to add? Now, when I look at my mop, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but it really is, well, let's look at the end here. It's pieces twirled together. And what I like to do is interject that twirling on parts, not throughout the whole thing. Maybe if I had an hour or 2 hours, I might decide to really get lost in this kind of twirling. I haven't used the word twirling with the mop yet. I'm really enjoying it. So I'm going to investigate that twirling and what it looks like. So that potentially the viewer of this knows that these are made from more than one strand. So again, like if I have 10 or 15 minutes, it's just going to be me going through and selecting parts that I want to create these lines with, doing the twirling. So I might come over here. And the nice thing about, really nice thing about doing 30 days of drawing is I know that I'm going to do 30 days. At the end, I'm going to have 30 drawings. Am I going to love all of them? No. I'm going to love some of them. I'm going to learn from all of them. I'm going to learn what I'm most interested in. I'm going to learn um, how better to use these tools that I'm using. I'm going to learn about composition, which means like how I lay out my object on the page. So if I were doing a shoe, is my shoe, like, am I looking down on my shoe? Is my shoe on an angle? Is my shoe running off the page? Uh, is the shoe on the page and then the shoestrings are running off the page? There are a lot of different ways that you can think about how your object can play with the page, how your drawing of the object play with the page. And you can think about what that means. Maybe your shoestrings are coming off and making another image, right? Like maybe the shoestrings are writing your name. All sorts of fun things that you can do with your object as you move through your 30 days and continue to keep yourself really interested in that one object that you have chosen. Like I mentioned, I've been obsessed with my mop here. Well, many mops. I have stacks of these in my studio for over 5 years. So you can really learn a lot about something when you dive into 30 days of drawing. So if you've been working along with me, you have gotten either a really good start on your first drawing, maybe you've completed it, depending on what your object is. The other thing about 30 days of drawing, it's really the act of drawing, right? So you can decide that you're done with your drawing. You only have 10 minutes. You have to go to school. You have to go to a meeting. So you're going to stop and you're going to leave your drawing as is. And the next day, you're just going to simply turn the page and start a new drawing. And so I have some tips for you to help you kind of stay on course for the entire 30 days. And the very first tip, the very first one is to have fun. And one of the things I was thinking about is that you could set yourself a little playlist that's like 10 minutes long, right? And you could, I'm going to switch cameras here so you can see my face. There we go. Okay. So you could do a little playlist like that's 10 or 15 minutes long that maybe relates to your object. So I would have to come up with a moppy playlist. I'm gonna have to think about that. I don't know what's on that playlist yet. But if I'm doing a plant or a shoe, what kind of songs might really get me in the mood to draw my object? So that's one way that you could interject a little bit more fun into it. The other thing is that you could try drawing the object by looking at the object and not at your paper. So you're gonna put your whatever tool you choose down on the paper, and then your eyes are never gonna leave your object. So you're gonna stare at it and you're gonna move your pencil around. You know, I've got the charcoal pencil here, and I'm going to do that for 10 or 15 minutes. So that's fun to do. And you might do many of those. It's a really good way to focus yourself. So if you have a day where you know you need to like focus a lot, that might be a really good way to start it. You could also try, and this kind of goes along with that idea, is you can look at your paper with your pencil, but never lift your pencil or your lumber crayon off the paper. You just keep moving it about. Okay, that's another good 10-minute exercise to see if you can keep it down on the paper and not lift it up. Ways to challenge yourself as you move through. Also, and I mentioned this a little bit as I was drawing, you can focus in on one part of your object. So if I think about a shoe, maybe I'm going to tie the shoe and I'm going to focus in on that bow shape. Or maybe it's just a part of the bow shape, or maybe it's the tip of my shoe. If it's an older shoe, maybe it's a little beat up and there's some interesting things about it that I want to see if I can do it with line, like if I can get that idea across. That's another fun way to just continue to investigate your object, explore it, really get to know it. I mean, if we think about shoes, there's a whole sole, right? The whole bottom of the shoe. What does that look like? What does the heel look like? How can we really, by the end of 30 days, explore every single part of our object? And for me, one of the things that I started to explore was the way the mop is kept together, and then the tag, right? So something that took me actually quite a while to focus on. It may have even been not till drawing 50 of that 100 that I did that I was like, there's the tag, right? So I have to incorporate that somehow, at least on a couple drawings. Why not? And that's what doing 30 drawings, it gives you that space to really dive in and explore things maybe that you think are like, why would I draw the tag? Why not draw the tag? The other thing, and I did mention this too when I was drawing, is do one drawing with the charcoal pencil, one with the lumber crayon, and one with the Conte, and then do a couple with all three. Like, what can you do when you put all three together? But first explore using only the lumber crayon and what that drawing, look at it when you can compare it to a charcoal pencil drawing of your object. What are the different emotions or different feelings you get from those two drawings? So you can do a lot of exploring simply with the three tools that you have. And then you have a regular pencil, right? So that can get pulled in if you're like, I just really need a different line now. I need to explore with a different line. And what I sometimes do with a regular number 2 pencil, I'm looking off to the side because it's right here, is I do some finer detail. Gives me some, a nice line, easy to control. So that's a good thing to think about. And then I always, with my mop drawings, as I mentioned, I pull something out that I think is particularly interesting about my mop. Maybe it's like this, there's kind of this bend in the mop here. And then we've got a nice squiggle over here, which is kind of on the back side here. So I would start with those two things. And then I would let my imagination, my hand kind of really go and create the rest of the drawing. And I'll continue to look at the mop for inspiration and influence, but I won't be tied directly to the mop. I won't always be creating it exactly as I'm seeing it. I'm going to start from something, and then I'm going to really let the act of drawing take over. And that's how I keep it really fun for myself to think of what else can I do? And at this point, I really should count all the drawings I've done, because I've done the 30-day drawing challenge for myself a number of times. And then I did over 100 drawings in a row, a little over 3 months. So I'm going to guess that I have at a minimum 200 drawings of an industrial mop. So you can do 30 days of drawing of whatever object you picked. It doesn't have to be an industrial mop head, really doesn't. So I hope you have had fun today. I hope that you have started your first drawing and that you're going to finish it up. So you have day 1 done. Yes. And then that you find some time each day. And for some people, it's going to be good to like set a time, like every morning I'm going to do this. Every time I eat lunch, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this after I have my dessert. So think about the time and then really explore your object. And, we here would always love to see them. So feel free to, you can tag us. I would love to see them, tag me. Thank you again for joining me today. And I hope you have a lot of fun doing your 30-day challenge. Oh,
Because it's Karen's account.
okay. I was like, wait, oh no, that's not for us.